So, hello there, and welcome back to another Night of the Movies podcast. I'm Spy Knight, and in these podcasts, I love talking on things, movies and TV, and whatever I want, whenever I want. And in today's podcast, I'm reviewing Jurassic World Rebirth. So, let's get into it, shall we? Jurassic World Rebirth is the 7th movie in the Jurassic Park / Jurassic World franchise. However, it is being billed as a sort of reboot to this franchise. It's being marketed as a new era in the Jurassic franchise. And this Jurassic film, this Jurassic World film at that, is directed by Gareth Edwards, who's best known for directing Rogue One, although it sounds like he didn't solely direct Rogue One. You know, if you read some stuff up on Rogue One, it sounds like Tony Gilroy came in and, you know, tried to change a lot from the film. Not tried to change a lot from the film, but he did change a lot from that movie. Even so, it sounds like Gareth Edwards didn't solely direct Rogue One. He is still credited as the director on that film, so I do think he had a lot of involvement in that film nonetheless. And Gareth Edwards also directed The Creator, which came out a couple of years ago, and I wasn't a big fan of that film, in all honesty. I wanted to love it, but I was really disappointed by it. And he directed the 2014 Godzilla movie, which I think is a lot better than some people give it credit for. It's not the best Godzilla film, it's not the best monster film, but I think it's a pretty good monster film at that. So when I heard that it was announced as a director for this new Jurassic film, I spoke about this on this channel. I spoke about all the news surrounding this new Jurassic film, all the news surrounding Jurassic World Rebirth when it was coming out on this channel. And when I heard that Gareth Edwards was attached as a director, I was like, okay, that's interesting. I want to see his take on a Jurassic film, because I haven't always loved Gareth Edwards' films in the past, and I don't know what his take on a Jurassic film would be like, but I'm interested. I was interested with a capital I. And another reason I was interested in this film was because it has a screenplay by David Koepp. David Koepp, if you don't know already, he wrote the screenplay for the first two Jurassic Park films. The best two Jurassic Park films, in my opinion. So when I heard that he was coming back to write the screenplay for this film, I thought, okay, now you may have me on board. They've got the original screenwriter back. You've got an interesting director, to say the least, and it sounds like with this film you're going in a different direction from the last three Jurassic World movies, which I think is the right decision. And just before I get into my opinion on this new Jurassic film, I want to talk about my opinion on the previous 6 Jurassic films, the previous 3 Jurassic Park movies, and the previous 3 Jurassic World movies. And I'm going to do that because it's my channel. I know in the past I've spoken at length. I did these lengthy reviews. I think it was around the time that lockdown was easing, that COVID was kind of, what COVID was kind of stopping, that we were able to go back outside after the pandemic. I think it was around that time that I was doing these lengthy reviews of the Jurassic films on this channel. And so I have spoken about my opinion on the Jurassic Park and the Jurassic World movies at length on this channel in the past, but just in case you haven't watched any of those reviews just in case you haven't heard my opinion on any of the previous Jurassic movies, let's get into it, shall we? Let's get into my opinion on the previous Jurassic films. So, the original Jurassic Park, I love dearly. I love the original Jurassic Park film. I've got a Jurassic Park t-shirt on right now. My Jurassic Park dressing gown is just there behind me. I've worn it in the thumbnail of this podcast today. I've got loads of Jurassic Park memorabilia in this room. I've got Jurassic Park sort of ornament, Funko Pop thing back there. Yeah, I am a humongous fan of the original Jurassic Park film. I think it is a masterpiece, and I think it's a near perfect film. There is nothing I would change about the original Jurassic Park. I think it is brilliant with a capital B. And then you get on to the Lost World Jurassic Park, the first of the Jurassic Park, or the first of the Jurassic sequels at that. And I am a big fan of the Lost World Jurassic Park. I think it's a far better sequel than most people give give it credit for. Is it as good as the original Jurassic Park? No, but it has many of the same themes in there. It's got some fantastic set pieces, and I think it's a far better sequel, like I've already said, than people give it credit for. I think The Lost World Jurassic Park is an underrated classic, at least in my opinion. Then you get on to Jurassic Park 3, which released in 2001, and Jurassic Park 3 is the first of the Jurassic films not to be directed by Spielberg. Spielberg directed the first two films, then Joe Johnston came on to direct Jurassic Park 3, and Jurassic Park 3 is an atrocious film in my opinion. I hate Jurassic Park 3. You know, it feels like it was made up on the spot, and then when you read some stuff up behind the scenes of the making of Jurassic Park 3, it sounds like it actually was made up on the spot. Jurassic Park 3 is just a one big mishmash of a film. It feels like it was just put together as the filmmakers are making it. There's no sense of direction, there's no real story to it, and it's one huge mess. So yes, I'm not a fan of Jurassic Park 3 at all. But 14 years after Jurassic Park 3, we got the fourth installment in the Jurassic franchise, which was of course the first Jurassic World, just titled Jurassic World. And I remember going to watch Jurassic World in 2015 in the cinemas, and I remember absolutely loving it when I came out of the cinema. And then the more I've watched it, the more I've thought about it over the past, almost 10 years now. Although it has been 10 years, what am I saying? I think it's 2024 then, no, it's 2025 now. The more I think about it, the more over the past 10 years that I've thought that maybe Jurassic World isn't as good as I originally thought it was. Nevertheless, I still enjoyed that first Jurassic World film. I still think I think it's an enjoyable movie with some really good sequences, with some well put together sequences, and I think it's a good Jurassic reboot. I think it's what the franchise needed at that point, and I personally, I still enjoy the first Jurassic World. And now, however, then you get on to the Jurassic World sequels, and you get to the first of the Jurassic World sequels, which is Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, which I don't hate. I don't even really dislike that much. I just think it's really disappointing and doesn't really go anywhere when you think about the following film as well. Like Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, the thing is, the first half an hour, the first 40 minutes of that film, when it's all on the island, I think that's actually quite entertaining. I enjoyed that first half an hour of Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, but then you get on to all the stuff with the auction and all the stuff in that house when it becomes like a haunted house film with the dinosaurs. I'm just like, what are we doing? What's the point in all this? And it just feels unnecessarily dragged out for the sake of it. And then you get on to Jurassic World Dominion, which was marketed as the epic conclusion to the Jurassic franchise. It had the original cast from the original Jurassic Park film returning, had the cast from the first two Jurassic World films returning too, and so you had the Jurassic Park cast and the Jurassic World cast together. Again, it was marketed as this epic conclusion to the Jurassic saga, and it is one of the worst films I have ever seen. At the end of Fallen Kingdom, you see that all the dinosaurs are set onto the mainland, all the dinosaurs all over the world, and then in Jurassic World Dominion, they just basically abandon that idea and do the whole Jurassic Park idea all over again. I'm like, what is the point in this? That, in my opinion, Jurassic World Dominion is one of the biggest missed opportunities in cinema history. I hate Jurassic World Dominion. It's one of my least favourite films ever, and I hate talking about it, and I hate thinking about it, so I'm not going to talk about it much anymore. I'm not going to really talk about it in this review after I've just talked about it now. So, that's my opinion on the previous 6 Jurassic movies. And after Jurassic World Dominion, I thought, you know what, maybe I'm done with this franchise, maybe that's it. Maybe that film just, it solidified the fact that the Jurassic franchise has gone in a direction that just is no longer for me. But then there was all this news coming out surrounding Jurassic World Rebirth, which got me interested in the film. Scarlett Johansson signing on to the lead role in the film. Jonathan Bailey joining the cast, Mahershala Ali joining the cast. I thought, okay, that's quite an interesting cast, and they're taking it in a different direction in the cast alone than the previous 3 Jurassic World movies. Plus, Gareth Edwards is a director, David Koepp is a screenwriter. I was thinking, okay, there's some interesting people who worked in film in the past. And plus, I thought that the trailers, when they came out for this film, I even did my trailer reactions on this channel, the trailers impressed me. A lot of people complained about the trailers of this film. I thought the trailer looked good. I thought they made this film look like it could be a fun summer blockbuster, and that's kind of all I was hoping for with this film. And I know that over the past week or so, this film has been receiving some mixed reviews. Yes, mixed reviews. There are some positive reviews of this movie. I saw one of the outlets that I read online gave this film 4 stars, which I thought was quite something. That was before I saw it. And I saw that another outlet that I follow online gave this film 2 stars. So this film has been receiving mixed reviews. And for that reason, I went into the cinema earlier today to watch this film, cautiously optimistic, hoping for the best. Truly hoping for the best. But also ready to dislike this film because of how I felt about the last Jurassic World movie. So yes, I went into the cinema hoping to just have a good time with this movie, but also prepared to come out of the cinema feeling completely uninflated. Is that the right word? Yeah, completely deflated. That's what I meant to say there. Completely deflated, like I felt coming out of the last Jurassic World movie. And after seeing the film earlier today, here are my thoughts on it. Here are my thoughts on Jurassic World Rebirth. Honestly, I think this is overall an enjoyable film. I don't think it's anything special, and I don't think it quite reaches the point of being anything particularly great, but the film, in my opinion, is equally surprisingly good and disappointingly underwhelming. The first half of the film, I was locked into. I was like, okay, I like this direction that you're going in. You're taking the franchise back to its roots. You're not trying to make this a big, expansive movie. You're taking it to one island. You're just following a group of characters. You're not trying to follow all these different characters all over the world like the last Jurassic World movies were doing. You're just following one set of characters going to this island. And I was like, okay, this is good. I am liking the direction this film is going. And I felt that way pretty much up to the Brachiosaurus in this film. I mean, they're not Brachiosauruses, but they may as well be Brachiosauruses. There's a Brachiosaurus in this film which I really liked. That was probably my favourite scene in the movie. But then after that, I'm not saying the film completely falls apart, because I don't think it does, and I don't think the rest of the film is terrible, but it's not as good as the first half. The second half of the film kind of, to me, felt like a bunch of action set pieces that the filmmakers behind this movie wanted to put into a Jurassic film and tried to piece together in a way that narratively didn't really work. And to me, the heart of the film was lost in the second half and it became empty. I'm not saying again that I didn't find it enjoyable to watch, but I was missing that heart. I was missing that emotional narrative thrust. Something which made me emotionally invested into the film, like you get with that the first 2 Jurassic Park movies at that, and like you actually kind of got a bit in the first Jurassic World movie. In this film, I was missing that emotional narrative thrust, and I was thinking that there's going to be something else narratively that tied to the opening scene in the film. Like, not going to spoil it, but the trailers kind of show this anyway. The opening scene in the film, you see that there are people in this lab and they're treating or experimenting on this mutated dinosaur. And I was like, okay, the opening sequence it's fine, it does what it needs to do. But I was thinking later on in the movie that there was going to be a character that tied to a character that may or may not have died in the opening sequence, but there wasn't. The opening sequence is just kind of there to set up a dinosaur that we see later on in the film, and a dinosaur that is kind of wasted later on in the film at that, and I felt that there could have been something that tied to it. There could have been something like, I don't know, just off the top of my head, Jonathan Bailey's character knew somebody who was testing the dinosaurs, the mutated dinosaur that we see at the start of the film, but that doesn't happen in the movie. There's nothing really like that, and I thought that was a missed opportunity not to have some link back to that opening scene, which I think would have made for more of an impactful sort of final act when you get to the location that our main characters are going to towards the end of this film, that they're going to by the time you get to the final act of the film, if you follow. But hopefully you get the point I'm making. The first half of the film I thought was solid. I thought was working well for the most part. And then the second half, again, I'm not saying it completely fell apart, but it didn't work for me nearly as much as I was hoping it would. It didn't have that impact that I hoped it was going to have. And one of my big criticisms with this film is the whole mutated dinosaur thing. I don't know why we keep going back to that in the Jurassic World movies. The first Jurassic World movie was enough to do. It had the Indominus Rex, and that was enough. You didn't need to do it again in Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. They did it again with the Indoraptor in that film, and then they do it again here. They might have even done it again in Jurassic World Dominion, I can't remember. But in this film, they do the whole mutated dinosaur thing again. Quite a bit, actually, now I think about it. Well, they do the whole mutated dinosaur thing again, not to get into too many spoilers, but they do it again, and they focus on it more in the final act of this film. I'm like, why are you doing this, though? You could have taken out the whole mutated dinosaur thing and just had a T-Rex and Velociraptors at the end of the film, harking back to the original Jurassic Park film more, and I think that would have worked. And I know that the first Jurassic World movie already did that as well, but I think that this could have actually been better than that finale to the first Jurassic World movie. But instead, you get these weird sort of mutated dinosaurs, at least I think they're mutated dinosaurs, in the final act of the film, chasing the main characters, and like, it just doesn't feel the same when those dinosaurs don't have the same effect as, say, the T-Rex. And that's one of my other big criticisms with this film. Why do we not have the T-Rex more in this movie? There's a fantastic sequence with the T-Rex in like the middle section of the film, and I was like, oh great, we're going to see the T-Rex come back later in the movie. And not to go into spoilers, but I was underwhelmed by the fact that, well, we didn't. So I was hoping that we were going to get a lot more T-Rex in the film, because the T-Rex, when you really think about it, is the main character of the Jurassic franchise overall. The T-Rex is in all the Jurassic movies, and the T-Rex is the star of the Jurassic movies. Often you root for the T-Rex. In the first film, you're scared for the T-Rex, and you know, in the first Jurassic World movie, you're rooting for the T-Rex, you know. But in this film, I felt they could have done so much more with the T-Rex, and I felt that it was a missed opportunity that the T-Rex wasn't anymore. Same with the Velociraptors. The Velociraptors, again, not to go into any big spoilers, but are barely in this movie, and the Velociraptors are this big part of the Jurassic franchise overall too. So I missed those dinosaurs. I really missed those key dinosaurs in particular sequences. And there were some characters that I thought were really good in the film. There's some characters that I enjoyed watching quite a bit, which I'll get onto a bit later in this review. But there were some other characters where I was like, what is the point of you in this film? You know what, I wouldn't mind if this character gets eaten by a dinosaur in the next 10 minutes of the film. Like, again, not to go into any big spoilers, because I'm trying not to go into any big spoilers. I mean, there's not any big spoilers in this film anyway, but try not to give anything away. Try not to give anything major away. There's one character in the film who's a boyfriend of one of the other characters. One of these characters are in a family together. And I didn't mind the family in this film. I thought that was okay. But there's a boyfriend in this family. And as soon as the boyfriend came on screen, I'm like, God, I hope he gets eaten by a dinosaur pretty soon in this movie. And again, trying to give anything away, but he doesn't. And that boyfriend was completely useless in this film. And also, he's meant to be the boyfriend to this girl in this family that we follow in the film, but they barely share any scenes together and barely say anything to one another. I'm like, what is the point of that? I don't believe for a second then that they're actually boyfriend and girlfriend, but that's not even the biggest problem with the boyfriend character. He's just annoying and unnecessary, and he gets in the way. If he was in the film would turn out exactly the same. He doesn't do anything. And again, he's annoying to watch. I want him to be eaten by a dinosaur. And you want that in a Jurassic movie. You want to have that character, that indispensable character, those indispensable characters that you want to see eaten by a dinosaur. You have characters like that in all the previous Jurassic movies, and I thought he was going to be that character when he first showed up on screen because of how arrogant and self-absorbed he was. But then, well, again, I was disappointed by the lack of anything really there with that character. Disappointed by any sort of conclusion with that character, because I wanted there to be a deadly conclusion, a conclusion which really finished them off, and well, there wasn't. And I thought that the film lacked heart in its second half in particular too. The first half of the film, I think, kind of sets up these characters in an interesting way, but the second half of the film doesn't really go anywhere with that setup. The first half has we learn some interesting things about our central characters, Scarlett Johansson's character, Mahershala Ali's character, and Jonathan Bailey's characters. We learn some interesting things about those characters, but then the second half of the film is like, it almost kind of forgets about that, and it becomes this action movie, and that disappoints me. I had the opportunity to do something really emotionally engaging and, tug at your heartstrings, but instead it just went for the big kind of monster movie type ending, and I did not particularly like that either. So you may be sitting there thinking, you're being quite critical of this film. I'm surprised you said you enjoyed it then. Well, I would say, yeah, I did enjoy it. That's the thing. I do have my criticisms, and I will talk about them, as I've done in this review already, but I'm also going to talk about the positives. And I want to be positive when I talk about a Jurassic World movie or Jurassic Park movie. I want to be as positive as I can, because this franchise has been a huge part of my life for so long. I remember watching The Lost World so much when I was a kid. I remember falling in love with Jurassic Park, 5 or 6 or 7 years ago, when I watched it for the third time, and it really worked for me to the point. It really worked for me to the point that it became one of my favourite movies. So I want to be as positive about this franchise as possible. And on every Jurassic movie I go to watch at the cinema, I want to love and I want to find the best things about those films. And for a lot of people, that won't be a thing. That won't be a big thing when they go and watch this movie. That won't be a big thing. They won't really care about trying to find the positives when they go and watch Jurassic World Rebirth at the cinema. And so for that reason, I don't think this film is going to work for a lot of people. I think this film will probably... I think this film for a lot of people will just probably be fine at best. But I went into the cinema hoping for the best and hoping to find things that I would really enjoy in this film. And I think that's why I ended up enjoying the first half of the film a lot more than I was kind of expecting to, because it went in a different direction. The first half of the film kind of says to you, it doesn't kind of say to you. At the beginning of the film, says in so many words, human interest in dinosaurs has waned and now people don't really care about dinosaurs anymore. And I was like, okay, that's an interesting direction to take the film after the events of the last two movies. And because the film went in that direction, I was like, okay, now you're taking it back to the roots, and now you can add that wonder back to the movie, something that the Jurassic World movies were lacking. And that's what this film did. And also it made the dinosaurs more exciting to me, particularly in the first half of the film when they came on screen. It's teased in the trailers, this isn't giving anything away. There's a sequence with a Mosasaurus in this film, which is my favourite sequence in this movie. It's probably my favourite sequence in any Jurassic World movie at that. I loved the sequence with the Mosasaurus because it harked back to the sequence it harked back to the big final act of Jaws. It harked back to Spielberg films like Jaws. Even had a bit of Last Crusade in that sequence, and I was watching that sequence in the movie and I was like, okay, this is what I want from this film. I really like the energy in this sequence, the energy in this boat sequence with this Mosasaurus. I thought was great, and the musical score was soaring in that sequence as well. I love the way that sequence was done, and I think that's the best sequence in this film. And that sequence got me excited for the rest of the movie, and then I was kind of disappointed by the rest of the film. But that sequence alone I thought was particularly well done. And again, the first half of the film, I was watching it and I was into it. I was into these characters. I thought that, you know, the writing wasn't too bad in the first half of the film. I actually thought the writing was okay. I thought it was pretty good. I mean, the writing really goes downhill in the second half of the film. Again, that second half, it was only better. But in the first half of the film, the writing was working for me. So, this is just a quick little add-on on this podcast from something I wanted to mention when I was recording this podcast, but I forgot to mention when I was recording this podcast, as it always seems to happen. But I really want to mention, and that is how Gareth Edwards makes the dinosaurs in this film feel and look huge. You feel the presence of the dinosaurs in this movie. Now, I do think there was a little too much CGI on the dinosaurs. I think there should have been some animatronic dinosaurs here and there, like in the first two Jurassic Park movies. But I do like how Gareth Edwards shoots the dinosaurs in this film. He makes them look big again. He makes them look like dinosaurs, like the huge creatures that they are, and that's something I don't think any of the Jurassic World films really got right. But I think that's something that Gareth Edwards really gets right with this film, and that's another big plus that I wanted to mention with this movie, that I wanted to mention in regards to this film, but I forgot to mention as initially recording this review. Anyway, back to me rambling on about this movie. There was a lot in the first half of the film when I was watching it, I was thinking, I have been missing this from the past three Jurassic World movies. And one thing that I really liked in the first half of the film was it felt like they were shooting on location. I'm not sure if they did, but it really felt like they shot on location. And it didn't necessarily feel like that with the past three Jurassic World movies. It felt like they shot in front of a blue screen or a green screen for the most part. But in this film, it feels like they shoot on location. Almost a lot of the settings feel like a lot of the settings almost have this synesthetic, I think that's what the word is, synesthetic touch to them. It feels like you can almost smell the settings, or it feels like you can almost, reach out your hand and touch the setting, kind of like you could in the first two Jurassic Park movies. And that's something I really liked about this film, the fact that it looked like they shot on location. Again, I don't know if they did, but it looked like they did, and I thought that made for a more engaging watch. Plus, I really liked how the film shot on film, because the past three Jurassic World movies were shot on digital film, if I'm not mistaken, and you could tell, and it just didn't have the same effect. Whilst this film felt like it was shot, it looked like it was shot on film. I think it was shot on film, and it added more to my engagement as well. And our main group of characters, the main three characters we follow in the movie, not just the main three characters, but Rupert Friend's character as well, and most of the family members in the film, I thought were I really liked watching them in the first half of the film. Again, it's all going back to the first half of the film. There was so much in the first half of the film where that was really working for me, and I was sat there thinking, you know what, if the rest of the film was like this, then I am going to love it. Unfortunately, the rest of the film was not like the first half, and the second half, I know I've already said this, but it just it had quite a few missed opportunities, and it felt like it didn't really go anywhere. The end of this film, although it is consequential if they make sequels, it's very important that they make sequels. It's very significant, the ending to this film, they make sequels. It also felt inconsequential. It felt like, okay, where do we go from here? What's the point? What was the point in all that stuff with the mutated dinosaur? I didn't really get it, and I felt like the film was missing something, missing a sequence, missing a storyline to really make this film feel more emotionally engaging, and to really make the narrative of this film feel like it really fits together more, because what you get in the second half of the film are sequences which just kind of feel like they were cobbled together. It feels like the filmmakers behind this movie, and I don't blame Gareth Edwards for this, because it sounds like he was brought on just before the film started shooting to shoot and direct this film, so I don't fully blame Gareth Edwards for this, but it feels like the filmmaker for this film, like David Koepp in particular, who is a really good writer. He's written some great films in the past, like the original Jurassic Park and like The Lost World, which I think, again, it's a far better film than people give it credit for. You know, David Koepp, it feels like when I was writing this film, like, oh, imagine if we had this sequence in a Jurassic film. It's like, okay, but what's the point of it? Why should I care about the sequence? Why narratively is this sequence important? Like, there's a sequence with these sort of pterodactyl sort of dinosaurs. And I was watching the sequence thinking, what is the narrative purpose of the sequence? And I'm still not sure if I could tell you that. It just kind of feels like David Koepp, who wrote the screenplay for this film, was writing the screenplay thinking, okay, what action set pieces can I put into this film to extend the narrative here, to make this film longer? It doesn't feel like the action set pieces in the second half feel earned, whilst that boat sequence in the first half of the film felt earned. That sequence with the Brachiosaurus type dinosaurs felt earned, and there were other sequences which felt earned in the first half of the film as well. But the second half of the film, not so much for me. And let's talk about the musical score, because I have to talk about the musical score. The musical score to the original Jurassic Park is one of the best musical scores of all time. I even love John Williams' score to The Lost World. I think it's one of his more underrated scores. I don't think enough people talk about how fantastic and how different the score to The Lost World is. And I don't really like the score to Jurassic Park 3, I'll be honest. I know some people do, and if you do, that's great. I wish I did. It's just not for me. And the scores to the Jurassic World films, I think, are pretty good. Pretty damn good. They're done by Michael Giacchino, who's a really good composer. And I actually said that the score to the last Jurassic World film, Jurassic World Dominion, is far better than the film itself. And the score to this film is not done by Michael Giacchino, who did the score to the last three Jurassic World movies. Instead, the score to this film is done by Alexander Desplat, who, you know, most famously did the scores to the last two Harry Potter movies, the Grand Budapest Hotel, the 2014 Godzilla film, another Gareth Edwards movie. He has done the score to a lot of movies in the past, and Alexander Desplat is quite an interesting composer. I really love his score to the Grand Budapest Hotel, but the Grand Budapest Hotel is not, it's not Jurassic World Rebirth, is it? You know, they're very different movies. And here's what I'll say about the score. Again, my expectations, and my computer's trying to speak to me there, my expectations were high for the score for this movie because of how much the scores for the first two Jurassic Park movies mean to me. And the score to this film is good. I just wouldn't say it's great. There's no themes from this film that are sticking in my head that are particularly standing out. There were some great pieces of music throughout the film, and I love the way they were used, particularly in the boat chase sequence, which is, again, is my favourite sequence in the movie. And I really liked how Alexander Desplat used those classic Jurassic Park themes, you know, da 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 da, or dum bum 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 da da dum da dum dum bum. I loved how he used those themes, and I loved how I held off on using those themes. But I thought that the new themes didn't stand out as much, and I thought that his music for the action sequences could have been better, could have been more thrilling, could have added to the thrill of the film. And yeah, I thought the musical score was, again, I thought it was a good score, but I thought it also could have been better. And it didn't have quite the effect I was hoping it would, because Alexander Desplat, you know, his musical score for Grand Budapest Hotel is a musical score where I can just listen to the main theme and I'm like, okay, I'm taken back to the world of the Grand Budapest Hotel. And I know that's a very different film than Jurassic World Rebirth, but still, you get the point I'm making. Whilst with Jurassic World Rebirth, if I listen to the score for this film outside of the film, I'm not sure if I'll be taken back to the film. Whilst if I listen to John Williams' scores for the first two Jurassic Park movies, I'm taken back to the world of those first two Jurassic Park movies. And I know that's perhaps not a fair comparison, because, you know, John Williams is the GOAT. He's one of the best composers of all time. He probably is the best composer, the best film composer of all time. But if you listen to, like, Michael Giacchino's score for the first Jurassic World movie, you're taken back, at least I am, to the first Jurassic World movie, but I don't know if I'd have that effect. I don't know if the score to the film would have that effect for me. And it's not a score, it's not a Jurassic World score which I am wanting to listen to after seeing the film. And I felt like I wanted to listen to the scores for the previous three Jurassic World movies, even though I was, you know, vastly disappointed by the last two Jurassic World movies. I still felt like I wanted to listen to the score after seeing those movies, and the score to the film isn't having that effect to me. So I think it's a good score. I like it. I think it works well with the film. I just wish it was a great score, and I think it had the potential to be with Alexander Desplat, who was a great composer. But I still liked the score to this film. However, I do wish this film had more thrills in there, had more wonder, and had more of an emotional thrust with it, because the film really is missing that heart. And it's missing that emotional engagement. And I'm not saying there isn't any wonder in it. There is wonder in the film, and there are thrills. But there isn't enough wonder and enough thrills, in my opinion, to properly make this a proper Jurassic film. At the end of the day, it's an enjoyable movie. And I'd probably say it's on par, at least for me, with the first Jurassic World movie, which I also think is an enjoyable film. But I do wish it was more. And with David Kemp writing the screenplay, I was hoping it was going to be more. But the writing isn't nearly as good as it should be. And I do wish this film was better. And the film, it was made in a year. I remember it was about a year ago that this film was announced, which is crazy to think about. And I'm not saying this film is rushed. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying it feels like this film is rushed. But it does feel like the film was made in a year, and it feels like if Gareth Edwards has had 2 years to make this film, that perhaps it would really feel like an epic Jurassic World movie, whilst it doesn't. And it had quite a few big missed opportunities. And as somebody who's a huge Jurassic fan, who's a huge fan of this franchise, I had a good time with this film. I'm not buzzing about it as I want to be, as I hoped I would be, and I think that it leaves quite a bit to be desired. That being said, I think this is probably Gareth Edwards' best director movie. I think he does a really good job, particularly as he was brought on just before the film started shooting. I think he does a really good job directing this film. I think the performances are great. Jonathan Bailey is without a doubt the standout in this film, and he's acting alongside Scarlett Johansson and Mahershala Ali, who are also, Mahershala Ali is an Oscar winner. Scarlett Johansson, I'm not sure, but she's definitely been nominated for an Oscar. Anyway, the point I'm making is acting alongside these prolific actors, but Jonathan Bailey, in my opinion, is easily the standout. I liked how this film connects to the original Jurassic Park. There was a small connection in the film, which I really liked with one of the characters. I won't give away. I'll let people experience that for themselves. And I thought that the film worked particularly well in the first half. In the second half, like I said, it falls apart, but still, there was enough in there for me to say that it was an enjoyable time at the cinema, and to say that it was a good, not a great, but a good summer blockbuster. And that is why I ultimately like Jurassic World Rebirth. But to answer the question that I've posed, that I've put in the title of this podcast today, is this the film that is going to make the Jurassic franchise extinct, which is basically the question of asking so many words in the title of the podcast today. Is it the film that's going to make the Jurassic World franchise extinct? I don't know. Maybe. In my opinion, it breathes new life into the franchise, but I don't know if many people are going to. It breathes some new life into the franchise. Not loads of new life, but some new life. However, I don't know how many people are going to share that opinion with me. Maybe some people will. Maybe a lot of people will. Maybe I'm not alone, but at the moment I feel like I'm alone on this island with these feelings regarding this film. I feel like most people will probably take a dislike into this film, and that this might be the nail in the coffin that makes the franchise extinct. This might be the film that makes the franchise extinct, which is a shame, because that really should have been the last movie. The last Jurassic World movie, Jurassic World Dominion, should have been the film which made this franchise extinct. But I have this feeling that's going to be this movie, which is a shame. But who knows? Maybe people will like it overall, and maybe I won't be alone. But at the moment, I feel like my enjoyment of this film was more because I was a Jurassic fan, in all honesty. And so, all in all, I'm going to say that Jurassic World Rebirth, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. I'm just going to slightly retract what I just said. I said that I think my enjoyment of this film was because I was a Jurassic fan, in all honesty. I take some of that back. I do think there are good parts of the film where, if you haven't watched the previous 6 Jurassic movies, you would quite like. I think there are parts of this film which work really well, and again, stand on their own 2 feet. That is something I like about this movie. Something that, the first Jurassic World movie wasn't necessarily good at. The first Jurassic World movie, as I already said earlier on this review, is a nostalgia-driven film. Whilst you don't get that from this film, there are nods to all of the previous Jurassic movies, but it's very much its own film at the same time. You don't have to watch the previous Jurassic movies in order to understand this film at all. If you haven't, and this is your first Jurassic movie, then I think you would still have a good time with it. But as a Jurassic fan, I will also say, as a fan of the first 2 Jurassic Park movies and the first Jurassic World movie, I will say that I think my enjoyment of those films also added to my enjoyment of this film. And I have thought to myself after seeing the movie that if I watched the film again, would it work for me? I don't know. I'm hoping it would. Maybe on a second time it would actually work for me a lot more. But I don't know. I just don't know if it would. Still, I had a good time with it for the most part in the cinema. I didn't hate the second half. It wasn't unwatchable. I just thought it lacked that emotional engagement I was hoping for. That emotional engagement you get in the second half of the original Jurassic Park. And I thought that it was an overall okay film with enough in there to make for a good, again, not great, but good summer blockbuster, which is what I kind of wanted with this film. I don't personally think it's going to be the film which makes the franchise go extinct, although it could be at the same time. But I also don't know if it's breathed enough life into the franchise for more installments. If the franchise ends here or goes in a different direction, I'll be fine as well. It's an okay film, and that's why I had a good time with it. It's nothing special, but it's far better than the last 2 Jurassic World movies. And in my opinion, it's on par with the first Jurassic World film, which I also really enjoy watching, and I think it's an okay film. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Jurassic World Rebirth as a whole. And so, all in all, as what he said, and as I'm going to say once more in this podcast today, Jurassic World Rebirth is a 7 out of 10 from me. Anyway guys, that's it for today's podcast. If you have seen Jurassic World Rebirth, please let me know your thoughts on it in the comment section below. And as always, thank you for watching or listening to this podcast. And if you haven't yet, please do click down below and like and subscribe on this podcast. And look forward to many more podcasts and many more videos coming very, very soon on this channel. As what he said, thank you so much for watching or listening to this podcast. And I will see you guys again soon, but bye for now. Bye.